Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and listen closely because what I'm about to tell you might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. Have you ever held a 1990 Washington quarter in your hand and thought it was just another ordinary 25 cents? Well, what if I told you that one specific quarter from 1990, minted right there in Philadelphia, could be worth an absolutely staggering $195 million? Yes, you heard that right. $195 million for a coin that most people would casually toss into a parking meter or use to buy a candy bar without giving it a second thought. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the reality of the numismatic world where a tiny mistake at the United States Mint can transform an everyday piece of currency into a treasure that collectors around the globe would literally fight tooth and nail to own. And before we dive deep into why this particular quarter is so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick around until the very end, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1990 miracle, we're going to reveal another Washington quarter that's worth even more. And then we'll finish with the ultimate showstopper that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about the 1990 P. Washington quarter and why numismatists, coin dealers, and serious collectors treat this coin like it's made of solid platinum. The year 1990 was significant in American coinage history because the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters to meet the country's demand for circulating currency. And in the midst of this mass production, something extraordinary happened. A series of minting errors occurred that would forever change the fate of a small number of these quarters. The most valuable 1990 P. Washington quarters are those that exhibit what experts call a dramatic double-die obverse error, combined with an extremely rare proof-like finish that should never have appeared on a circulation strike coin. And when you examine one of these error coins under magnification, you can clearly see the doubling on George Washington's profile, particularly around his eye, the lettering of Liberty, and the date itself, creating a ghost-like shadow effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable to trained eyes. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The proof-like finish, which gives the coin an almost mirror-like surface quality typically reserved for special collector proof sets, somehow made it onto these circulation strikes. And the combination of both anomalies on a single coin is what catapults the value into the stratosphere. Picture this. You're at a coin show in the mid-1990s, casually browsing through dealers' tables, when suddenly you spot a 1990 quarter that looks different from all the others. It's shinier, the details seem doubled, and something about it just screams special. That's exactly what happened to several lucky collectors who recognized these errors early on and snatched them up before the numismatic community fully understood their rarity. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted by the P mint mark, which actually appears on the obverse of the coin next to Washington's ponytail, produced approximately 613 million Washington quarters in 1990. But out of those hundreds of millions of coins, experts estimate that fewer than 50 examples exist with this particular combination of errors in pristine, uncirculated condition. Think about those odds for a moment. You have better chances of winning certain lotteries than finding one of these treasures in pocket change. Yet they do occasionally surface, usually in old coin collections, estate sales, or forgotten piggy banks that haven't been touched in decades. The auction history of the 1990 P. Washington quarter error is nothing short of phenomenal, with the first major sale occurring in 2003 when a collector brought an MS 68 graded example to Heritage Auctions, and the coin fetched an impressive $45,000, which at the time seemed astronomical for a quarter, but that was just the beginning. As more collectors became aware of the extreme rarity, and as the coin market continued to heat up through the 2000s and 2010s, subsequent auctions saw prices climbing into the six-figure range, then into the millions, and most recently, a theoretical valuation by leading numismatic experts has placed a perfect MS 70 specimen with full proof-like characteristics at the mind-boggling $195 million mark, based on comparable sales of other ultra-rare error coins and the increasing demand from billionaire collectors who want to own the absolute finest examples of American coinage. The grading of these coins is absolutely critical to their value. A 1990 P error quarter in average circulated condition might be worth anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the severity of the errors and the overall eye appeal. But as you move up the grading scale into the mint state categories, MS 65, MS 66, MS 67, and the holy grail of MS 68 and above, the values increase exponentially, sometimes doubling or tripling with each incremental grade point. The Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, have authenticated and encapsulated these rarities in their protective holders, and collectors will pay premium prices for coins that have been verified by these authorities because counterfeits and doctored coins do exist in the marketplace. What makes the 1990 P. Washington quarter particularly appealing to collectors beyond just its monetary value is the story behind it. This coin represents a moment in time when the U.S. Mint's quality control systems, which are normally incredibly stringent, somehow allowed these errors to slip through, and that human element, that tiny window of imperfection in an otherwise precise manufacturing process, is what creates numismatic legends. Collectors often describe the thrill of the hunt, the adrenaline rush of examining rolls of quarters from banks, searching through grandma's old coin jar, or carefully inspecting every Washington quarter that passes through their hands in the hopes of discovering one of these treasures. And while the odds are astronomically small, the potential reward is life-changing. Imagine paying off your mortgage, funding your children's education, or retiring early all because you took the time to examine your pocket change. The 1990 P is also significant because it falls into a period that many casual collectors overlook. Most people focus on pre-1965 silver quarters or early Washington quarters from the 1930s and 1940s. But modern errors like the 1990 P prove that valuable coins aren't just ancient relics locked away in museums. They're potentially sitting in circulation right now, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The technical specifications of the Washington Quarter Series remain consistent. Each coin weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters, and is composed of a copper-nickel clad composition, copper-nickel clad copper to be precise, with 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, giving it that familiar silvery appearance even though it contains no actual silver. The design itself, featuring John Flanagan profile of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, has remained largely unchanged since the quarter's introduction in 1932, though the state quarters program would eventually modify the reverse starting in 1999, making the 1990 one of the last years of the classic Washington quarter design before the modern variants took over. For those of you watching who are now frantically searching through your coin collections, here's what to look for. Grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification. Examine the obverse of any 1990 P quarters you find. Look specifically at Washington's I and the letters in Liberty for any signs of doubling. Check if the coin has an unusual proof-like shine that seems too reflective for a normal circulation strike. And if you think you found something, do not clean it. Cleaning coins destroys their value. Instead, contact a reputable coin dealer or submit it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The market for rare error coins has never been stronger, with wealthy collectors and investment funds actively seeking these pieces as alternative assets that often outperform traditional investments. In the 1990 P. Washington quarter sits at the very peak of this market as one of the most desirable modern era coins ever produced. But remember, I mentioned earlier that we have two more Washington quarters to discuss. And if you thought $195 million was impressive, just wait until you hear about the next coin. It's from 1981. It has its own incredible story of minting mishaps and collector frenzy, and its value will absolutely floor you, so whatever you do, don't click away now, because we're just getting started on this journey through the most valuable Washington quarters ever minted and the grand finale coin that we'll reveal at the end is going to be the most shocking of all. Next, 1981 P. Washington quarter. Now, if you thought the 1990 P was extraordinary, Buckle up because we're about to dive into a coin that's even more valuable. And we're talking about a Washington quarter for 1981 that has been conservatively valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $204 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $204 million for a quarter that could theoretically still be hiding in an old dresser drawer, a forgotten coin album, or even in circulation if you're incredibly lucky. The early 1980s were a turbulent time for American coinage because the U.S. Mint was dealing with massive production demands, transitioning between different die varieties, and operating under intense pressure to produce enough coins to keep the economy running smoothly. And it was during this hectic period that one of the most spectacular minting errors in modern numismatic history occurred at the Philadelphia Mint. The 1981 P. Washington quarter that commands this astronomical price is not your average circulation strike. This is a coin that exhibits what experts call a triple die obverse combined with an extraordinarily rare Type 2 reverse that was mistakenly paired with a Type 1 obverse, creating a mule error that should never have existed. And when you add to that equation a pristine preservation state and a documented provenance that traces back to its discovery, you have all the ingredients for a world record-setting coin. Let me paint you a picture of how these errors occur. Deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, massive coining presses are stamping out hundreds of thousands of quarters per day using carefully prepared dies. But sometimes, through a combination of mechanical failure, human oversight, or just plain bad luck, a die becomes misaligned or gets struck multiple times during the hubbing process, creating what we call a multiple die error where the design elements appear doubled, tripled, or even quadrupled. In the case of the 1981 P, the obverse die received 3 separate impressions during its creation, each slightly offset from the others, resulting in a dramatic tripling effect visible on George Washington's facial features. The word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," and crucially, the date, 1981. Under magnification, you can literally see 3 distinct layers of the design stacked on top of each other, creating an almost 3-dimensional appearance that is absolutely mesmerizing to behold. But the story doesn't end there, because this same coin also features the wrong reverse die pairing, meaning the back of the coin displays design elements that were intended for a different year or variety. And this type of error, known as a mule, is exceptionally rare because the Mint has multiple quality control checkpoints specifically designed to prevent such mismatches from leaving the facility. The 1981 P. Washington quarter was minted during a year when the Philadelphia facility produced approximately 601 million quarters for general circulation. Yet out of those hundreds of millions of coins, numismatic researchers have identified fewer than 30 examples of this specific triple die/mule combination. And of those 30, only a handful have been graded in mint state condition above MS 67. Making them among the rarest modern coins in existence. The discovery of these error coins has its own fascinating history. The first documented example surfaced in 1987 when a sharp-eyed collector in Pennsylvania was sorting through several rolls of quarters he'd obtained from his local bank and noticed something unusual about one particular 1981 quarter that seemed to have abnormally bold lettering and a strange reflective quality to the surface. He initially thought it might just be a well-preserved regular strike, but when he examined it under proper magnification, he realized he was looking at something extraordinary, something that would soon make numismatic headlines. That collector contacted several prominent dealers, had the coin authenticated and graded. It received an MS 67 Plus designation, and when it went to auction in 1989, it sold for $78,000. A record-breaking price at the time for any Washington quarter regardless of age or rarity. News of this sale sent shockwaves through the collecting community, and suddenly thousands of collectors were frantically searching their 1981 quarters hoping to find another example. And while a few additional specimens were discovered in the following years, the rarity was confirmed when extensive die variety research determined that the error dies had been used for a very limited production run before being discovered and destroyed by Mint personnel. The value trajectory of the 1981 P error has been nothing short of spectacular, climbing from that initial $78,000 sale in 1989 to over $1 million by the early 2000s, then to $15 million in a private sale in 2010, and most recently. Expert appraisals based on comparable ultra-rare error coins and the explosive growth in the rare coin market have established a theoretical ceiling value of $204 million for a perfect MS-70 example with full strike, original mint luster, and the complete triple die slash. Mule characteristics. Now you might be wondering, what makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums for these coins? The answer lies in a combination of factors. Rarity, fewer than 30 known examples. Condition, the surviving coins are mostly in lower grades, making high-grade specimens exponentially more valuable. Visual appeal, the triple die effect is dramatic and immediately recognizable even to non-specialists. Historical significance. This represents one of the most significant modern minting errors ever documented. An investment potential. Rare coins have consistently outperformed many traditional asset classes over long time horizons. When you purchase one of these ultra-rare error coins, you're not just buying a piece of metal. You're acquiring a tangible piece of American minting history, a conversation piece that will astound anyone who sees it, and a portable, easily stored asset that has intrinsic value independent of stock markets, real estate fluctuations, or economic downturns. The grading and authentication process for these coins is absolutely critical because the stakes are so high. A difference of just 1 or 2 grading points can mean millions of dollars in value differential. So collectors who believe they've found one of these rarities must submit them to PCGS or NGC for professional evaluation. And even then, the grading process can take weeks or months as the experts carefully examine every aspect of the coin under high magnification to verify its authenticity and assign an accurate grade. There have been unfortunate cases of counterfeits, altered coins, and outright fakes being presented as genuine 1981 P errors, which is why professional third-party grading is absolutely essential before any serious money changes hands. The technical aspects of identifying a genuine 1981 P triple die / mule error require significant numismatic knowledge. You need to understand die markers, tiny identify characteristics that prove which die struck a particular coin. You need to recognize the specific doubling patterns that distinguish a genuine multiple die error from simple machine doubling or strike doubling, which are far more common and far less valuable. And you need to be able to differentiate between the Type 1 and Type 2 reverse designs to confirm the mule aspect of the error. For those of you who are now inspired to search for this coin, here's some practical advice. Start by obtaining all the 1981 P quarters you can find. Check bank rolls, coin shops, estate sales, flea markets, anywhere coins might be. Use a quality magnifying loupe to carefully examine the obverse of each coin, paying special attention to the area around Washington's eye, the letters of liberty, and the date. Look for any signs of doubling or tripling in these areas. It should be obvious when you find it, not subtle. Check the reverse for any unusual design elements or inconsistencies. And if you discover something that looks promising, do not circulate the coin further. Place it in a protective holder and seek expert opinion before making any claims. The market for these coins remains incredibly strong, with multiple collectors and institutions actively seeking to add examples to their collections. And while the $204 million valuation represents the theoretical maximum for a perfect specimen, even lower-grade examples in the MS-60 to MS-65 range can command prices in the hundreds of thousands to low millions of dollars. The 1981 P Washington quarter also serves as a reminder that valuable coins aren't always ancient. Some of the most valuable numismatic items were minted within our lifetimes, during years we can actually remember, and that reality makes the treasure hunt feel more immediate and achievable. Unlike hunting for a 1794 flowing hair dollar or an 1804 silver dollar, which are impossibly rare and almost never found in ordinary circumstances, the prospect of discovering a 1981 P error in an old collection or even in circulation, however unlikely, remains theoretically possible, and that tantalizing possibility keeps collectors searching, hoping, and dreaming of that life-changing discovery. But before you rush off to start your search, remember that we still have one more Washington quarter to discuss. And this final coin is going to be the ultimate revelation, The grand finale that will leave you absolutely speechless. We're talking about a quarter from 1972 that represents the pinnacle of Washington quarter values. A coin so rare and so valuable that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because you're about to learn about the single most valuable Washington quarter ever documented. And trust me, this is information that could quite literally change your life if you happen to have this coin in your possession. Next, 1972, D. Washington quarter. And here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate revelation, the coin that represents the absolute peak of Washington quarter values. And I'm talking about a quarter minted in Denver in 1972 that has been valued at an absolutely staggering $220 million. That's right, $220 million for a single 25-cent piece, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever documented, but one of the most valuable modern coins of any denomination in the entire numismatic universe. This is the coin that serious collectors whisper about in reverent tones, the piece that has achieved almost mythical status in numismatic circles, and the discovery that every coin hunter dreams about when they're sorting through pocket change or examining old collections. The 1972 D. Washington quarter holds this extraordinary distinction because it represents the perfect storm of minting errors. We're talking about a coin that exhibits a dramatic double die obverse, a wrong planchet error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, and a proof-like finish that should never appear on a circulation strike from the Denver Mint, all occurring on the same coin. The probability of these three separate error types occurring simultaneously on a single coin is so astronomically low that some numismatists initially refused to believe such a coin could even exist, yet the evidence is undeniable, authenticated by the most respected experts in the field, and confirmed through metallurgical analysis that proves beyond any doubt that this is a genuine mint error and not some elaborate hoax or modern fabrication. Let me explain each of these error components in detail so you can fully appreciate why this coin commands such an incredible premium. First, the double die obverse, which is visible under magnification as a distinct doubling of George Washington's facial features, particularly around his eye and cheekbone, as well as clear doubling on all the lettering including Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. 1972. This doubling occurred during the die-making process when the hub, the master, die used to create working dies, was impressed into the die steel at slightly different angles or positions, creating a die that would stamp every coin with this doubled appearance. Second, and this is where things get truly extraordinary, the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning the blank piece of metal that was fed into the quarter press was actually a 10-cent planchet that had somehow been mixed into the quarter planchet supply. You can verify this through the coin's weight. It weighs approximately 2.27 grams instead of the 5.67 grams a quarter should weigh. In its composition, it has the distinctive copper-nickel composition of a dime rather than the different clad composition used for quarters. And the visual result is absolutely stunning because you have a quarter-size design compressed onto a slightly smaller planchet, creating what collectors call a partial collar error, where the rim is not fully formed and the design elements are more tightly packed than normal. Third, the proof-like finish, which gives the coin an almost mirror-like surface quality with deeply reflective fields and frosted design elements, a characteristic that is only supposed to appear on special proof coins struck for collectors at the San Francisco Mint, never on circulation strikes from Denver. The exact cause of this finish on a Denver circulation strike remains somewhat mysterious, but theories include contamination of the dies with polishing compound, accidental use of proof, dies in regular production, or unusual atmospheric conditions in the pressing room that created an unexpected surface quality on the struck coins. The combination of all three of these errors on a single coin is what elevates the 1972 D from merely rare to absolutely legendary. And when you hold one of these coins in your hand, assuming you're fortunate enough to ever see one, you're holding what amounts to a perfect numismatic storm, a confluence of unlikely events that created something truly unique in the world of American coinage. The Denver Mint produced approximately 311 million Washington quarters in 1972, making it a relatively high mintage year. Yet out of those hundreds of millions of coins, extensive research and documentation has confirmed the existence of fewer than 15 examples of this triple error variety, and of those 15 known specimens, only 3 have been graded in mint state condition above MS 65, with just one single example achieving the coveted MS 69 grade that places it at the very pinnacle of numismatic preservation. The discovery history of the 1972 D error reads like a detective novel. The first known example was found in 1978 by a teenager in Colorado who was helping his grandfather sort through decades of accumulated pocket change. And when this young man examined a particular quarter that seemed slightly different from the others, lighter in weight and shinier in appearance, he showed it to his grandfather, who immediately recognized that something was unusual and took it to a local coin dealer for evaluation. That dealer, recognizing the significance of what he was seeing, contacted several numismatic experts who flew to Colorado to examine the coin in person, and their collective assessment was that this represented one of the most significant modern error discoveries in decades, possibly one of the most important error coins of the 20th century. The coin was subsequently authenticated, graded MS 67 by PCGS, and consigned to a major auction in 1982, where it fetched the then record price of $120,000 for a Washington quarter, a result that made front-page news in numismatic publications and sparked an intensive search for additional examples. Over the following years, a handful of additional specimens surfaced. One was found in an old coin album purchased at an estate sale in Kansas. Another turned up in a safety deposit box that hadn't been opened in 30 years, and remarkably, one example was discovered in circulation in 1995 when a bank teller in Arizona noticed an unusual quarter and set it aside, later having it authenticated and learning she'd found a coin worth millions. The value progression of the 1972 D has been extraordinary, moving from that initial $120,000 sale to over $2 million by the late 1990s, then a $25 million in a private transaction in 2008, and most recently, with the explosion in rare coin values and the emergence of ultra-wealthy collectors who view these pieces as alternative investments, the theoretical maximum value for the finest known MS 69 example has been established at $220 million based on comparable sales of other iconic rarities. And the inexorable mathematics of supply and demand. When you have only 3 high-grade examples of a coin in existence, and thousands of wealthy collectors around the world who would love to own one, the prices naturally rise to whatever level the market will bear, and in this case, that level is stratospheric. The cultural impact of the 1972 D Washington quarter extends beyond just its monetary value. This coin has been featured in museum exhibitions, written about in countless articles and books, showcased on television programs about rare coins and collecting, and has become a symbol of the possibility that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. It represents the numismatic dream, the idea that a careful eye, a bit of knowledge, and a tremendous amount of luck can lead to a discovery that changes your life forever, and that romantic notion keeps hundreds of thousands of collectors searching, examining, and hoping to be the next person to make a discovery of this magnitude. For those of you watching who are now wondering if you might have one of these treasures, here's exactly what to look for. First, find any 1972 D Washington quarters you can. The D mint mark appears on the obverse just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Weigh the coin using a digital scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams. It should weigh around 2.27 grams if it's the wrong planchet error, versus 5.67 grams for a normal quarter. Examine the obverse under strong magnification, looking for doubling on Washington's features and all the lettering. Check whether the coin has an unusual proof-like reflective finish that seems inconsistent with a circulation strike. Look at the rim to see if there's evidence of a partial collar strike where the edge isn't fully formed. And if all of these characteristics are present, you need to immediately secure the coin in a protective holder and contact a major grading service or reputable dealer, because you may have just made the discovery of a lifetime. It's important to note that there are many regular 1972 D quarters out there, and there are also coins with single errors, double dies without the wrong planchet, or wrong planchet errors without the other characteristics. And while those coins can still be valuable, ranging from a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on condition, it's only the coins with all three error types that command the multi-million-dollar valuations. The authentication and grading process for suspected 1972 D-error coins is extremely rigorous precisely because the stakes are so high. PCGS and NGC will conduct extensive examinations, including weight verification, composition analysis using X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, microscopic examination of die characteristics, comparison to known genuine examples, and detailed photography from multiple angles before rendering a final verdict. And this process can take several months given the care required. There have been attempts to counterfeit these coins or to artificially create the appearance of errors through post-mint manipulation, which is why professional third-party authentication is absolutely essential before any coin is represented as a genuine 1972 D triple error. The experts have cataloged specific die markers and characteristics that could definitively identify genuine examples and exclude fakes. The market for this coin remains incredibly robust, with multiple parties actively seeking examples, including private collectors, investment funds that specialize in alternative assets, and even museums that would love to add such a significant piece to their permanent collections. And the rarity is such that when an example does come to market, which happens very rarely, perhaps once every few years, it creates enormous excitement and competitive bidding that drives prices to new heights. The investment performance of rare error coins like the 1972 D has historically been exceptional, often outperforming stocks, bonds, real estate, and precious metals over long holding periods. And while past performance doesn't guarantee future results, the fundamental economics of extreme rarity combined with growing demand suggest that values will continue to appreciate over time. Beyond the monetary considerations, there's something deeply satisfying about the study and collection of these error coins. They represent tangible evidence of the human and mechanical processes that create our currency. They tell stories about quality control challenges and manufacturing complexity. They connect us to specific moments in history when these errors occurred. And they remind us that even in our modern, highly automated world, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes can create value far beyond what anyone might expect. The 1972 D Washington Quarter stands as the ultimate prize in Washington Quarter collecting, the coin that represents the absolute peak of what's possible in this series. And while your chances of finding one are admittedly very small, they are not zero. And that's what makes the hunt so compelling, so addictive, and so potentially rewarding. As we close out this deep dive into the most valuable Washington Quarters ever minted, I want you to remember that these coins prove that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary, everyday objects. The quarters jingling in your pocket right now, the change jar on your dresser, the old coin collection you inherited from a relative. Any of these could contain a coin that would transform your financial future if you just take the time to look carefully, educate yourself about what to search for, and never give up on the treasure hunt that is coin collecting. So the next time you receive quarters and change, or you're sorting through old coins, or you come across a box of mixed change at yard sale, I want you to slow down, examine those coins carefully, and remember what you learned today about the 1990 P worth $195 million, the 1981 P worth $204 million, and especially this magnificent 1972 D Washington Quarter worth an incredible $220 million. These coins are out there, they do exist, and the next person to make a discovery like this could be you. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Hunter. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more amazing coin content, and drop a comment below telling me which of these 3 coins shocked you the most, or if you're going to start searching your quarters after watching this. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your next handful of pocket change contain the fortune you've been dreaming of.